Gonzalez here, Navy to Navy Homes. Quick video blog today about the military clause. A lot of confusion out there about the military clause. So we're here in Florida. I'm going to speak specifically to the Florida military clause and basically the Servicemen's Civil Relief Act, which is the overall federal thing. So kind of the first, I'm going to hit some frequently asked questions. One is, as a landlord, do you have to have this in your lease? And the answer is no, you don't have to have this in your lease. And you don't because there's a Florida statute and a federal directive. Okay, so the federal directive is the Service Members Civil Relief Act, and that covers all members of the military. Okay, there's a lot of details in that. That's not what I'm really going into right now. I'm just talking about the military clause, okay, per your lease, if they're gonna break for specific reasons. If in Florida, a service member wants to break their lease for whatever reason, okay, there's several things that fall underneath the military clause. Most often is when they are PCSing, they're permanent change of station, they're moving to another location, or they're moving into base housing, or they're going on deployment greater than 90 days, or there's been a death of a service member, or they've gotten out of the military. So those are our most common things that people will use the military clause for. And with all those, they can go. Now, if it's just under the federal guidelines, then all they have to do is give the property manager written notice. And with that written notice, then they are responsible. It's basically 30 days after the next rent payment is due. So if you're in October, you give this notice, then you're responsible for rent through November, okay? And then the landlord has to honor that. Now here in Florida, the Florida statutes are a little bit more lenient towards the service member. However, it requires more on the service member's part to use the Florida statutes. Here's what I mean by that. So the same basic guidelines as to why they can break a lease, but in Florida, if a tenant gives you 30-day notice, as you said, same thing, in the middle of October, then it is per that day. They have 30 days from the day that the property manager receives notice. That's when they can break their lease. If, and here's the most important part, so Florida statute, it's 83.682, something like that. Anyway, when they give that notice, paragraph 1 says, here's where you can break and here's where you're only good for 30 days. There's 4 more paragraphs in there. And the other 4 paragraphs talk about what you have to do so you can only have to give a 30-day notice. And one of the most important parts is in paragraph 2. Paragraph 2 says, okay, if you want out in 30 days, then you have to do one of 2 things. One thing is you have to have official military orders saying why you're doing what you're doing. So the most common thing is like base housing, if they're moving to base housing. Well, Millington, Tennessee is not going to issue official military orders to move you into base housing. So the Florida statutes don't really apply there. The second one is if you get a verification signed by your commanding officer. Okay, so that's much easier to do, but it has to come from the commanding officer. So what most people do, if they're moving into like a base housing, is they'll take the letter from base housing into their admin office, and they will have a letter written up by their admin crew and then signed by the CO. So that is, you have to have one of those 2 things in order to just get the 30-day notice. Otherwise, you're covered by the big military clause, the federal level, when you're responsible for rent from the beginning of the next rental period 30 days out. So a lot there. I know I'm already doubled my time here with regards to the military clause. We have several other blogs on it. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. It's Mario Gonzalez, Navy to Navy Homes. And again, we thank you for all that you do for us, service members, for our country. You guys are awesome, and thank you.